I think a lot of autistic adults learn about love the hard way. Well, I did. Not because we're broken or clueless necessarily, but because we care very deeply about developing close relationships and struggle to navigate the ins and outs of dating, let alone figure out who may be taking advantage of us. I used to think that I was the only one who kept ending up with the wrong people, but it turns out so many of us do. Maybe it's out of scarcity, lack of knowledge, getting swept up in excitement, or finding comfort in empty promises. It's clear that many autistic people find themselves with others who aren't necessarily the best for us. So today I want to share something that still feels uncomfortable. Why people like us become targets in dating, and how we can protect our hearts without changing who we are. You know, when we grow up autistic, you're often told that you're too trusting or naive, and that's likely because we tend to struggle with neurotypical social norms and find a lot of comfort in direct communication. We believe people mean what they say, without all the other bits of indirect communication that would tell us otherwise. Things like body language, tonality, facial expressions. Stuck in the monotony of life and loneliness, we can feel like when someone's finally giving us the attention we crave, it's like a drop of water in a desert. It's like being seen for the very first time, and it opens up a floodgate of possibilities for love, affection, and the future. When I was single and dating a fair few years ago, I was feeling incredibly lonely because of the fact that my friend group were dotted around the country. I didn't really have a lot of abilities to meet up with friends at the weekend, to do things with other people. There was pretty much nobody in my local area, and I was struggling to make friends, let alone find a romantic partner. We as autistic people often struggle with things like eye contact, flirting, interpreting indirect communication from others, small talk, and the environments that we date in, which is usually a public space, not as chill and as quiet as our own private spaces. We get thin sliced judgments about our character being weird, cringe, creepy, uninterested, or mistrustful. Experience that social anxiety from trying to dissect conversation in real time. And we have that awkward processing delay, which leaves us to interrupt the other person constantly. All of this to say that dating is hard. Finding someone is hard. But there are a ton of things that can make dating a painful process, specifically for autistic people. So, I met someone at a hobby class and I asked them out, not really expecting anything. From then on, till about 2 to 3 months down the line, that sort of honeymoon period, everything was blissful and easy. They talked about the future, moving in with them. They took me out a lot to do things and expressed a lot of strong emotion towards me. That contrast between my lonely, depressed existence and the exhilarating experiences and large promises was pretty large, and so it was really easy for me to be drawn in. I didn't quite catch on to the amount of control this person was exerting over my life, though. For a lot of us, attention can feel akin to oxygen, so when someone offers it, even if it's good for us or healthy, if we find them attractive, it's difficult not to believe it's true. So let's talk about the ways things can go wrong. I used to think that red flags were obvious, but they're not so easy to spot in reality, especially when you're infatuated or when they're dotted here and there during your everyday life, during the ins and outs in everyday life. These things can lead us to miss them, these things in particular. Our focus on direct communication being probably one of the biggest ones. Autistic people will often put an overemphasis on direct communication over indirect communication. So essentially, what people say over how they say it. This is awesome if both parties are truthful, but for a lot of people, they don't always express the truth in their exact words. It can be hidden behind a layer of context and subtleties, or just be flat out deceptive. Number 2, our relative difficulties finding love. We as autistic people, due to our inherent difficulties communicating and socializing with neurotypicals, can find ourselves in greater states of scarcity. In this example, scarcity being the amount of partners, for example, available to date or form relationships with. When humans feel that sense of scarcity, it can lead us to chase the affections of someone who is not exactly right for us. And number 3, masking. Growing up autistic, we are often masked and we hide our autistic traits through assimilation, compensation, and masking. These are all types of social camouflage, the social camouflage umbrella, which keeps us safe and helps us socialize if done right, but in dating and friendships, it can lead us to develop connections that aren't really too genuine. This either happens from mirroring the other person's trait in communication or from morphing ourselves into what we feel people find attractive. When we mask, we aren't necessarily attending to our own needs and desires, and we're putting all of our focus towards pleasing the other person. This can lead us to miss red flags, or can eventually lead us to pairing off with someone who is genuinely incompatible with us. Counter to what people believe, similarity is actually a really big factor when it comes to attraction. Alexithymia. Alexithymia is a difficulty noticing and categorizing our emotions. I talk about it a lot. And it's very common for autistic people too. The problem with it is that combined with the sensory and social stresses in dating situations, it can lead us to agree to things we aren't comfortable with or to statements we don't actually believe is right. It's only when we have space that we can get clarity on our feelings, and without it, we can be open to emotional manipulation. So how do we protect ourselves in dating, in the dating process? Because this part took me a long time to learn. Be clear about your need for direct communication and ask for clarification if you don't understand their indirect communication. That's number 1. Number 2, although you may be lonely, isolated, try your best to be measured and slow in your approach to dating. This will likely work in your favor not to become too needy either. Number 3, ask friends or supporters to reality check things. Dating is complicated, and having an extra ear can actually be a big help. Don't apologize for being slow with your feelings. People often need time and space to process, so it's reasonable to assume you might need a little bit more time to process those complicated feelings. Love, infatuation, lust, these are all complicated feelings. And be clear about your boundaries and intentions, and try your best to hold the other person to them too. I want to say this directly because I know you probably need to hear it. There is nothing wrong with wanting to trust. There is nothing wrong with being honest. There is nothing wrong with being different and autistic. People just need to prove themselves over time, communicate their needs, and often be patient. The ironic thing is, our direct communication is often encouraged by dating coaches because it's so important for fostering healthy relationships with people. There are actually a lot of autistic traits that can be valuable in a partner. And yes, that means sometimes we fall for the wrong people, but we might need a little bit more experience getting to know people in social settings and practice assertiveness. Maybe you've been hurt. Maybe you're still healing. But please try not to change yourself to fit a mold and appeal to someone who isn't right for you. The right person won't take advantage of your honesty and autistic traits. They'll treasure them and support you. If this resonated with you, you're not alone. Please make sure to subscribe on your way out or check out my recent videos over on my new YouTube channel, which I'm trying to build up. Much love. Take care.